The stars seemed different from the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel. Harmony. Not brighter, not dimmer, but somehow more attentive, as if they were watching us with the same curiosity that we watched them. My daughter, Luna, pressed her small palm against the transparent aluminum, her breath creating ephemeral clouds on the surface. "Will they like us, Papa?" she asked, not turning to face me. At 8 years old, Luna possessed a gravity that sometimes made me forget she was still a child. I adjusted my formal diplomatic attire, the midnight blue fabric embedded with subtle luminescent threads that represented Earth's position in the Galactic Council. "The Milky Way Confederacy has invited us to join them, little one. That's already a good sign." "But will they like me?" Her voice carried a tremor that tightened my chest. I knelt beside her, our reflections overlapping in the observation window. Behind us, the ship's crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for our arrival at Eden, the neutral planet where the Council convened. "They're interested in this ability, Luna, and you're one of the best practitioners we have." This ability, the awkward name, had stuck after first contact, when our translators struggled to find an equivalent for what the Council species called it. The capacity to read and influence animal emotions, to form bonds across species boundaries through a combination of empathic projection and neurological synchronization. Humans had always had rudimentary versions of it. Animal trainers, horse whisperers, people with uncanny connections to their pets. But genetic engineering had amplified the trait in recent generations. Luna turned to me, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "I can't feel them out here. The Milkies. They're still far away," I explained. "The Milky Way Confederacy spans thousands of light years. We'll reach Eden tomorrow." "The Milkies," Luna repeated, with the stubborn insistence children show when adults misunderstand them. "The real ones." I smiled at her use of the colloquial term. The Milkies had become humanity's affectionate nickname for the Confederacy species, despite diplomatic attempts to enforce more formal terminology. The name came from their pale, opalescent appearance and their remarkably peaceful civilization, the milk of kindness, made manifest on a galactic scale. "The Milkies inhabit many worlds," I said. "Eden is just one of them, but an important one." Luna's fingers traced invisible patterns on the glass. "I want to show them what I can do." "You will," I promised, though uncertainty gnawed at me. The message that had diverted our routine diplomatic journey had been cryptic but urgent. The Council required a formal explanation and demonstration of this ability within 48 hours of our arrival. Something had prompted this sudden interest, and in diplomatic circles, sudden interests rarely boded well. "Ambassador Elias," called a voice behind us. Captain Raya stood at the entrance to the observation deck, her posture formal, but her expression friendly. "We've received additional communications from Eden. The Council has arranged accommodations for you and Luna in the Terran Quarter." "Thank you, Captain," I replied. "Any clarification on the nature of the summons?" She hesitated, a flicker of concern crossing her features. "Nothing specific, sir. But chatter among the transport pilots suggests some sort of incident involving Earth fauna on Eden. The Council is being unusually tight-lipped." Luna tugged at my sleeve. "Papa, I can't feel anything." I glanced down, momentarily confused by the non sequitur. "The animals on the ship," she clarified, her voice rising with panic. "I always feel them. The ship cats in engineering, Captain Raya's service dog, even the bacteria in the hydroponics bay. But now, nothing." I looked to Raya, whose brow furrowed with concern. "When did this start, Luna?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Just now, like someone turned off a light." Tears welled in her eyes. "Papa, did I break it? Did I break this ability?" I pulled her into a hug, meeting Raya's gaze over Luna's head. This was not a coincidence. not with the council's summons and now this sudden loss. Something was happening. Something that targeted the very ability we had been called to explain. "We'll figure it out," I promised, feeling the small tremors of her body against mine. "This is what diplomats do, Luna. We solve puzzles." As I held my daughter, the stars continued their silent observation through the window, and somewhere ahead of us, the planet Eden orbited a yellow star not unlike our own, waiting with questions I wasn't sure I could answer. The diplomatic shuttle broke through Eden's cloud cover, revealing a landscape that defied easy categorization. Neither fully terrestrial nor completely alien. The planet had been terraformed centuries ago by the Confederacy to serve as neutral ground, incorporating elements from thousands of homeworlds. The result was a patchwork of ecosystems, crystalline forests adjacent to swamplands, rolling prairie butting against silicon deserts. Luna pressed against the viewport, her earlier distress temporarily forgotten in the face of such wonder. "It's like someone couldn't decide what kind of planet to make," she whispered. "That's exactly right," I said, grateful for her momentary return to childish enthusiasm. "Eden is a compromise, a place where everyone can find something familiar and something new." The shuttle banked toward a sprawling complex that gleamed like mother of pearl in the morning light. The Harmony Spire, seat of the Galactic Council, and symbolic heart of the Milky Way Confederacy. Around it, the diplomatic quarters spread in concentric rings, with areas designated for each member species. Our pilot, a humanoid Arcturian with feathered arms, gestured toward a section near the outer ring. "Terran Quarter," she announced. "Still new construction. You humans move quickly." I nodded politely at what might have been either a compliment or a subtle criticism. Humanity's admission to the Confederacy was recent, and not without controversy. Some member species viewed our rapid technological advancement with suspicion, particularly our genetic enhancements like this ability. As we disembarked, I felt Luna stiffen beside me. "What is it?" I asked. "I still can't feel them," she said, her voice small. "But I should look." She pointed to a gathering of creatures that resembled Earth's deer. If deer had been designed by someone who had only seen pictures of them. Their limbs were too slender, necks too long, and their eyes, enormous and faceted like insect eyes, reflected prismatic light. "Elysian grazers," explained our escort, a protocol officer named Vesta. "Genetically engineered to thrive in multiple environments. You'll find them throughout Eden." "I should be able to feel them," Luna insisted, her voice rising. "This ability works on all animals, even ones we've never seen before." Vesta looked at me questioningly. I placed a steadying hand on Luna's shoulder. "My daughter is experiencing some technical difficulties with her abilities," I explained. "Is there a medical facility in the Terran Quarter?" "Of course, Ambassador," Vesta replied smoothly. "But perhaps the Council's summons should take priority. They've requested your presence as soon as you've settled." I checked the time. Less than 40 hours remained before the formal presentation. "Luna, I need to attend this preliminary meeting," I said, kneeling to her eye level. "Would you be all right with visiting the medical facility with Vesta while I'm gone?" Luna's face hardened into a mask of forced maturity that broke my heart. "I'm fine, Papa. This ability will come back. Maybe it's just different here." I wanted to believe her, but diplomatic instinct told me otherwise. This was no coincidence. "I'll return as quickly as I can," I promised. "Then we'll prepare for tomorrow together." The Council's antechamber was designed to inspire awe, with a domed ceiling that displayed a real-time holographic map of the entire Confederacy. Millions of stars and thousands of inhabited worlds, all connected by the delicate threads of quantum communication and faster-than-light travel routes. I was kept waiting for 23 minutes, an intentional diplomatic tactic I recognized well. When the inner doors finally parted, I was escorted into a circular chamber where 7 representatives sat in a semicircle. I recognized most species: the crystalline lurians, the gelatinous melosians, the 4-armed cartellans, and the insectoid just. 2 others were unfamiliar to me, which was concerning. I had studied all major Confederacy species extensively. At the center sat a being of indeterminate gender, whose skin rippled with colors like the surface of a soap bubble, one of the true Milkies, the species that had founded the Confederacy millennia ago, and whose real name was unpronounceable to human vocal cords. "Ambassador Elias of Earth," announced a disembodied voice. "The Council welcomes you to Eden." I bowed in the manner my briefings had indicated was universally respectful. "The honor is Earth's, esteemed council members." "We will dispense with pleasantries," said the Milky representative, colors shifting to deeper blues. "An incident has occurred that requires explanation." A hologram appeared in the center of the room, a recording from what appeared to be a wildlife preserve on Eden. It showed a human child, perhaps 10 years old, surrounded by a swarm of flying creatures that resembled dragonflies the size of eagles. The child's hands moved in patterns I recognized, the formalized gestures that helped practitioners focus this ability. 3 days ago, continued the Milky, this young human entered a restricted breeding ground for Elysian sky darters. When preservation officers attempted to remove the child, this occurred. The hologram showed the swarm of sky darters, forming a protective barrier around the child, preventing the officers from approaching. When one officer activated what appeared to be a stun device, the entire swarm attacked with coordinated precision. "The officers suffered significant injuries," said a just representative, mandibles clicking. "The child claimed no control over the creature's actions. We have observed similar incidents on 7 different preserves," added a Lurian, light refracting through its crystalline form, "always involving human children and indigenous fauna." I maintained a diplomatic mask, but internally, my mind raced. "I understand your concern," I said carefully. "This ability is not meant to be used aggressively. It's primarily a tool for communication and harmonious interaction." "Yet these incidents suggest otherwise," said the cartellan, 4 arms gesturing simultaneously. "They suggest a form of control that violates our most basic principles of interspecies autonomy." "Control is not the goal," I countered. "Communication is. This ability allows humans to sense animal emotions and convey our own in return. It's not fundamentally different from how many council species communicate with non-sentient life on their homeworlds. But the extent and apparent universality of this human ability raises concerns," said the Milky representative, "particularly given humanity's historical tendencies toward dominance rather than cooperation." The accusation stung, but wasn't entirely unfair. Humanity's bloody history was well documented. "We have evolved," I said firmly. "This ability itself is evidence of our commitment to understanding rather than dominating. My own daughter is a practitioner. She's here on Eden, and I would be happy to arrange a demonstration that shows the true nature of this gift." The council members exchanged glances, their various communication methods, color shifts, pheromones, subsonic rumbles, creating a conversation I could only partially perceive. "Your daughter," said the Milky finally. "She is the one designated for tomorrow's formal presentation?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Luna has been working with this ability since she was 3. She's exceptionally skilled at forming peaceful bonds with animals." Another silent exchange among the council. "Very well," said the Milky. "The formal assessment will proceed as scheduled. But be warned, Ambassador, if this ability is deemed a threat to interspecies harmony, significant restrictions will be placed on human integration into the Confederacy." The unspoken threat was clear: demonstrate that this ability was safe, or humanity's standing in the galactic community would be compromised. "I understand," I said, bowing again. "You will see tomorrow that this ability strengthens bonds rather than imposes control." As I was escorted from the chamber, a Milosian counselor rippled forward. "Ambassador," it said, its translator rendering a voice like honey poured over gravel. "A word of caution. There are factions within the Council with varying perspectives on human inclusion. Some view your species with hope, others with suspicion." "And where do you stand, counselor?" I asked quietly. The gelatinous being pulsed once. "I reserve judgment. But I will tell you this. The incidents were not random. There is a pattern to their timing and location that suggests orchestration." Before I could press for clarification, the Milosian retreated, leaving me with more questions than answers and a growing sense of unease. Someone might be deliberately undermining humanity's position in the Confederacy, using this ability as the leverage point. And my daughter, my Luna, was now at the center of this interstellar political web. I rushed back to our quarters in the Terran complex, my mind churning with implications. The medical facility had found nothing physically wrong with Luna, which only deepened the mystery of her sudden inability to connect with animals. When I entered our temporary home, a modest but elegant suite designed to approximate Earth aesthetics while incorporating Confederacy technology, I found Luna sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed in concentration. Around her floated a holographic display showing Earth's animal species, cycling through mammals, birds, reptiles, and fish. "Any luck?" I asked gently, not wanting to break her concentration. Her eyes opened, disappointment evident. "Nothing. I've tried everything. Papa. All the exercises, all the focusing techniques. It's like trying to remember a word that's on the tip of your tongue, but it never comes." I sat beside her on the floor, the holographic salmon and trout swimming through the air between us. "The Council is concerned about this ability," I explained. "There have been incidents, other children like you, but using their abilities in ways that seemed threatening." Luna's eyes widened. "I would never hurt animals. This ability isn't for hurting." "I know that," I assured her. "And tomorrow, we'll show the Council too. But—" I hesitated, unsure how much of the political situation to burden her with. "But what?" she pressed. I sighed. "Luna, do you remember what I told you about being a diplomat? Sometimes you have to say things without saying them," she recited. "And sometimes you have to hear things that aren't being said." I smiled despite my worry. "Exactly. And right now, I'm hearing that someone might not want humans to be part of the Confederacy. They might be using this ability to make us look dangerous." "Is that why I can't feel the animals anymore?" Luna asked, her voice small. "Did someone take it away from me?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't considered that possibility, that Luna's ability had been deliberately suppressed, but it aligned perfectly with the pattern the Milosian counselor had hinted at. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we're going to find out." I activated my diplomatic communicator. "Connect me with Terran Science Liaison, please." After a brief conversation, arrangements were made. An hour later, Dr. Samira Okafor arrived at our quarters, carrying equipment I didn't recognize. Tall and composed, with close-cropped silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been one of the first human scientists permitted to work directly with Confederacy research teams. "Ambassador Elias," she greeted me formally, then broke into a warm smile as she knelt beside Luna. "And you must be Luna. I've heard you're quite talented with this ability." "I was," Luna said miserably. "Now it's gone." Dr. Okafor's expression turned serious. "May I scan you? This device is based on Confederacy medical technology, but calibrated specifically for human neurology." Luna nodded, and Dr. Okafor gently placed what looked like a delicate silver crown on my daughter's head. It shimmered briefly, then projected a three-dimensional model of Luna's brain in the air before us, with certain areas highlighted in pulsing colors. "Fascinating," murmured the doctor. The neural pathways associated with this ability are intact, but there's a suppression field affecting the activation patterns. She looked up at me, eyes narrowing. This isn't natural, Ambassador. Someone has deliberately targeted these specific neural pathways. My diplomatic training prevented me from showing the anger that flared within me. Can you counteract it? Dr. Okafor studied the readouts. Not directly, no. The suppression is incredibly sophisticated. It's like nothing in our current human technology. She glanced at Luna. But there might be another approach. This ability evolved from natural human empathic capabilities. Sometimes, when direct pathways are blocked, the brain can establish alternative routes. Like finding another road when there's construction? Luna asked. Dr. Okafor smiled. Exactly like that. The brain is remarkably adaptable. Luna, would you be willing to try some exercises I've developed? They're challenging, but they might help your brain find those alternate routes. Luna sat up straighter, determination replacing despair. I'll try anything. For the next 2 hours, Dr. Okafor led Luna through a series of increasingly complex visualization and meditation exercises. I watched with a mixture of pride and concern as my daughter pushed herself to the limits of concentration, sweat beading on her forehead as she struggled to reconnect with an ability that had once been as natural to her as breathing. Finally, Luna gasped, her eyes flying open. I felt something, just for a second. The Elysian grazers in the garden below. They're nervous about a predator scent. Dr. Okafor's instruments confirmed a brief spike in the neural pathways. Excellent progress, she said. The suppression field is still active, but your brain is beginning to work around it. Will she recover enough for tomorrow's demonstration? I asked quietly, while Luna continued practicing. Dr. Okafor's expression was guarded. It's impossible to say. These alternative neural pathways are unstable and require intense concentration to maintain. Under normal circumstances, I'd recommend weeks of gradual rehabilitation. We don't have weeks, I said grimly. We have less than a day. Then I suggest a practical approach, she replied. Instead of trying to fully restore all aspects of this ability at once, focus on a single, controlled demonstration with a specific animal. Something small and already predisposed to human interaction. I nodded, an idea forming. The Harmony Spire has an Earth section in its biological archives. Species from all Council worlds are maintained there. A familiar species might be easier for Luna to connect with while she's still developing these alternative pathways. Dr. Okafor agreed. After she left, Luna and I sat on the balcony of our quarters, watching the triple moons of Eden rise over the crystalline forest in the distance. Luna continued her exercises, occasionally reporting fleeting connections with nearby creatures. It's like trying to tune an old radio, she said, frustration evident. I get static, then a clear signal for just a second. Then it's gone again. I placed a hand on her shoulder. You're doing remarkably well, considering someone has deliberately tried to block your ability. Luna looked up at me, her young face serious in the moonlight. Who would do that, Papa? Why do they want to make us look bad? I chose my words carefully. The galaxy is full of different perspectives, Luna. Some species have historical reasons to be cautious about newcomers, especially those with unusual abilities, and some may have economic or political reasons to want humanity to remain isolated. That's not fair, she said, with the pure indignation only a child can muster. No, it's not, I agreed. But fairness isn't always the driving force in politics, galactic or otherwise. Luna was quiet for a moment, then said, I need to practice with a real animal, Papa, not just trying to sense them from a distance. I nodded. Tomorrow morning, before the demonstration, we'll visit the biological archives. You can work directly with some Earth animals there. And if I can't do it, her voice trembled slightly. If I can't show them this ability? I pulled her into a hug. Then we adapt, Like good diplomats always do, we find another way to make our case. But as Luna finally drifted off to sleep that night, I sat awake, staring at the alien moons and calculating possibilities. The truth was, without a convincing demonstration of this ability, and an explanation for its benign nature, humanity's position in the Confederacy would be severely compromised. Years of careful diplomatic work could unravel overnight. Even worse, if the Council determined that this ability represented a threat, they might mandate genetic restrictions on future human generations, essentially demanding that we abandon a part of what we had become. Someone was manipulating events to force exactly this outcome. The question was, who stood to gain from humanity's isolation or restriction? And more immediately, how could I protect my daughter while still fulfilling my diplomatic mission? Morning on Eden brought a crystalline clarity to the air and a message from the Council. The formal demonstration had been moved up by 6 hours. We now had barely enough time to visit the biological archives before Luna would need to perform for the entire Council and a gallery of diplomatic observers. "They're trying to pressure us," I explained to Luna as we hurried through the pearlescent corridors of the Harmony Spire. "Less preparation time means more chance of mistakes." Luna, dressed in formal attire that matched my own diplomatic blues, nodded with a seriousness beyond her years. "I won't let them win, Papa." The biological archives occupied 3 full levels of the spire, with environments carefully recreated from thousands of worlds. The Earth section was modest compared to the elaborate habitats of older Confederacy members, but it contained a representative selection of terrestrial life. Dr. Okafor met us at the entrance, her expression concerned. "The schedule change is problematic," she said without preamble. "Luna's neural pathways need time to stabilize." "We'll work with what we have," I replied, projecting a confidence I didn't entirely feel. "What animals would you recommend for the practice session?" "Something with established empathic capacity," she suggested. "Mammals, preferably. Dogs or primates would be ideal." The archive curator, a tall Lurian, whose crystalline form refracted light in hypnotic patterns, led us to a habitat containing several small Earth mammals. "We maintain these specimens for comparative biological studies," they explained. "All are in excellent health and temperament." Luna approached the clear barrier separating us from the habitat. Inside, a group of rabbits grazed on familiar earth grasses, while a pair of ferrets played in a hollow log. In a separate section, a golden retriever dozed in a patch of sunlight. "The dog," Luna said immediately. "I want to try with the dog." The curator nodded and adjusted controls that opened a small access door. "This specimen is called Rusty. He was born in the archives from our breeding program and has regular interaction with human caretakers." Luna entered slowly, while I watched anxiously from behind the barrier. Dr. Okafor monitored Luna's neural activity on her portable scanner. Rusty raised his head as Luna approached, his tail giving a tentative wag. She knelt a few feet away from him and closed her eyes, her face a mask of concentration. "Neural activity increasing," murmured Dr. Okafor. "She's attempting to establish connection." For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Luna remained still, her expression increasingly strained. Rusty watched her curiously, but made no move to approach. "It's not working," I said quietly. "Wait," Dr. Okafor replied, eyes on her scanner. "There's something fluctuating. The suppression field appears to weaken when she focuses on specific emotional wavelengths, rather than trying to establish full connection." Inside the habitat, Luna opened her eyes, which glistened with unshed tears of frustration. But instead of giving up, she began to speak to Rusty in a low, steady voice. "I know you can feel something from me," she said. "Just a little bit. I used to be able to show you everything I'm feeling. But now I can only send you tiny pieces. Can you help me? Can you find the pieces?" To my amazement, Rusty's ears perked up. He rose and stretched, then padded slowly toward Luna. "Remarkable," said Dr. Okafor. "She's producing microbursts of empathic projection, too brief for the suppression field to block completely. It's like sending a message one letter at a time between the pulses of a jamming signal." Luna remained perfectly still as Rusty approached, sniffed her extended hand, and then, in a motion that brought a lump to my throat, pressed his head against her palm. "Connection established," Dr. Okafor confirmed. "Limited, but definite." For the next hour, Luna worked with Rusty, gradually strengthening their bond. The process was visibly exhausting for her. This ability had always come naturally before, but now each small connection required intense concentration. By the end of the session, Luna could direct Rusty through simple behaviors: sitting, staying, retrieving objects, using only emotional cues rather than verbal commands. It wasn't the seamless communication she had once been capable of, but it was a demonstration that could work. As we prepared to leave for the council chamber, Dr. Okafor pulled me aside. "She's doing remarkably well considering the circumstances," she said. "But I must caution you, this method of bypassing the suppression is extremely taxing. Luna will not be able to maintain it for more than 30 minutes at most before neural fatigue sets in." "The demonstration should be shorter than that," I replied. "And there's something else," she added, lowering her voice. "I've analyzed the suppression field's signature more thoroughly. Its technology appears to be just in origin." I kept my expression neutral, despite the shock of this revelation. The Zhest were among the oldest and most respected Confederacy species, and had been the most vocally skeptical about human inclusion. "Can you document this?" I asked quietly. "I've already secured the data," she confirmed. "But I'd recommend discretion until after the demonstration. The political implications are significant." I nodded my thanks and rejoined Luna, who was saying goodbye to Rusty. Despite her obvious fatigue, her eyes shone with renewed determination. "I can do this, Papa," she said as we walked toward the council chamber. "Not like before, but enough to show them." I squeezed her hand. "I know you can. Just remember what we discussed. Focus on demonstrating communication, not control. The council needs to see that this ability is about harmony, not domination." Luna nodded, but her attention had already shifted to our surroundings. As we approached the grand entrance to the council chamber, she suddenly stopped, her head tilting as if listening to a distant sound. "Luna," I prompted gently. "The Milkies," she whispered. "The real ones. They're close." Before I could question what she meant, the massive doors to the council chamber swung open, revealing a circular space, far larger than the antechamber I'd visited the day before. Hundreds of diplomatic observers filled tiered seating around a central floor where the council members sat in a perfect circle. Above, the domed ceiling displayed not stars this time, but a real-time feed of Eden's surface, focusing on the wildlife preserves where the concerning incidents had occurred. At the center of the council circle stood a transparent containment habitat, within which paced a creature I recognized from briefings, but had never seen in person. A juvenile Elysian apex predator, something like a cross between a puma and a monitor lizard, with iridescent scales and retractable claws that gleamed like polished obsidian. This was not the simple demonstration with Rusty that we had prepared for. "Ambassador Elias and Luna Elias of Earth," announced the formal voice. "The Council welcomes you to this assessment of the human capability designated as this ability." I stepped forward, Luna's hand firmly in mine. "We are honored by the Council's attention to this matter," I replied, my diplomatic training automatically providing the correct phrases, while my mind raced to adapt to this unexpected challenge. The Milky Way representative, their skin rippling with more complex color patterns than during our previous meeting, gestured toward the containment habitat. "The incidents that have prompted our concern involved indigenous Eden predators. It seems appropriate that your demonstration should address similar conditions." My heart sank. This was no longer just a demonstration. It was a test designed to create maximum difficulty. The Elysian predator was not only alien to Luna, but it was a species specifically evolved to resist empathic influence, with a nervous system optimized for hunting. "Council members," I began carefully, "my daughter has prepared to demonstrate with Earth species, with which she has greater familiarity. This change in protocol tests the universality that makes this ability concerning," interrupted the Just representative, mandibles clicking rapidly. "If human children can influence any species, including apex predators, the implications for ecosystem management throughout the Confederacy must be addressed." I felt Luna's hand tighten in mine. I looked down to find her staring at the predator with intense concentration. "It's okay, Papa," she said quietly. "I can try." "Luna, this isn't what we prepared for," I whispered. "That creature is dangerous, even in containment." She looked up at me, determination hardening her features. "But that's the point, isn't it? They want to see if this ability is dangerous. I need to show them it's not." Before I could respond, the Milosian counselor rippled forward. "Perhaps a compromise. The human child may first demonstrate with a familiar species, then attempt contact with the Elysian hunter, if she wishes." Relief flooded through me. "We accept this reasonable accommodation," I said quickly. At a gesture from the Milosian, a side door opened, and a handler entered with Rusty on a lead. The golden retriever's tail wagged as he recognized Luna. "Proceed," said the Milky representative. Luna stepped forward, kneeling as Rusty approached. I watched anxiously, aware of hundreds of alien eyes, evaluating every nuance of the interaction. Dr. Okafor stood at the edge of the chamber, her scanner discreetly monitoring Luna's neural activity. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Luna closed her eyes, her face showing the same intense concentration I had witnessed in the archives. Rusty sat before her, head tilted expectantly. Then, slowly, without any verbal command or physical gesture, Rusty stood, walked in a perfect circle around Luna, sat again, and offered his paw. Murmurs rippled through the observing diplomats. "She is controlling the creature," stated the Just representative. "No," I countered quickly. "She's communicating. Luna is projecting emotional cues that Rusty is choosing to respond to. Not unlike how your own species uses pheromones to coordinate group activities." The Just's compound eyes gleamed, but it offered no rebuttal. Luna continued the demonstration, guiding Rusty through increasingly complex behaviors, using only the fragile, partial connection she had managed to establish. Despite the suppression field that I now knew was Just technology, she was maintaining the link through sheer determination. Finally, Rusty lay down beside Luna, resting his head on her lap in a display of trust that needed no translation across species barriers. "This ability creates bonds," I explained to the council. "It doesn't override an animal's nature or force compliance. It establishes mutual understanding." The Lurian counselor's crystalline form refracted light in what I recognized as a pattern, indicating thoughtful consideration. Yet, the incidents in our preserves showed aggressive responses from wildlife. How do you explain this discrepancy? Without examining those specific cases, I cannot offer a definitive explanation, I replied diplomatically. But I would suggest that if animals responded aggressively to protect human children, it may have been a natural response to perceived threats against someone they had bonded with, not unlike how many species protect their young. This explanation seemed to satisfy several council members, but the Just representative clicked its mandibles in what I recognized as skepticism. "Words are easily crafted. Ambassador," it said. "If this ability is truly about communication rather than control, let us see it tested with a species not bred for compliance with humans." All eyes turned to the Elysian predator in its containment habitat. The creature had stopped pacing and was now watching the proceedings with unnerving intelligence. Its vertical pupils, dilated in the chamber's light. I looked at Luna, ready to refuse on her behalf, but the expression on her face stopped me. Despite her fatigue, despite the enormity of the challenge, my daughter was already studying the predator with the calm assessment that characterized the best practitioners of this ability. "I would like to try," she said, her voice clear and carrying across the chamber. The Milky representative's skin shifted to a pattern I couldn't interpret. "The Council acknowledges the child's courage. Safety protocols will be maintained at maximum." As Rusty was led away, Luna approached the containment habitat. The Elysian predator tracked her movement, its muscular tail lashing once before going still. "Neural activity is becoming erratic," Dr. Okafor whispered as she moved closer to me. "The suppression field appears to be increasing in strength." My suspicions crystallized. This wasn't just a test. It was a setup. Someone wanted Luna to fail, to prove that this ability was either dangerous or ineffective when faced with a true challenge. Luna stood before the habitat, separated from the predator by only a few centimeters of transparent material, engineered to withstand far greater forces than a child or even an adult human could generate. She placed her palm against the surface, mirroring the gesture she had used with Rusty. The predator hissed, displaying rows of serrated teeth. Luna closed her eyes, her face contorting with effort. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she struggled against the invisible barrier in her mind. Long seconds passed. The council chamber was utterly silent. "It's not working," the just representative finally said. Satisfaction evident even through the translator. "The human ability fails when confronted with truly alien biology." Luna's eyes snapped open. "No," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's not failing. It's being blocked." Before I could intervene, Luna turned to face the council, her small figure somehow commanding in its intensity. "Someone doesn't want this ability to work," she declared. "Someone is using technology to stop me from connecting. But this ability isn't about technology. It's about feeling, about understanding. And that can't be completely blocked." She turned back to the habitat, placed both hands against it, and began to speak directly to the predator. "I know you're scared," she said, her voice gentle but carrying in the silent chamber. "This place isn't your home. These lights are too bright for your eyes. The air smells wrong. I understand feeling out of place." The predator had gone completely still, its attention fixed on Luna. "I can't show you my feelings like I usually would," Luna continued. "Someone is trying to stop me, but I can still understand yours. You're angry, confused. You want to go back to your territory." To my astonishment, the predator moved closer to the habitat wall, its head now just centimeters from Luna's hands. "She's established partial connection," Dr. Okafor whispered, amazement in her voice. "Not through the normal neural pathways, but through a completely different approach. She's using verbal cues to supplement the blocked empathic projection." Luna continued speaking to the predator, describing emotions and sensations that she would normally have communicated directly through this ability. It wasn't the seamless connection she had once been capable of. But the animal was responding, its aggressive posture relaxing, its breathing synchronizing with Luna's own. "Remarkable adaptation," murmured the Milosian counselor. "The child has found an alternative method of achieving similar results." But just as the demonstration seemed to be succeeding, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The holographic display on the ceiling shifted, showing a massive storm system moving rapidly across Eden's surface. "Emergency protocols activated," announced an automated voice. "Plasma storm approaching Harmony Spire. All diplomatic personnel return to designated shelters immediately." The council chamber erupted in controlled chaos as attendees began evacuating, according to predetermined routes. The Milky representative rose, their skin pulsing with urgent patterns. "Assessment suspended," they declared. "Security will escort the human representatives to their shelter." "Wait!" Luna cried, still facing the predator habitat. "What about him? He's terrified of the storm, I can feel it." The jazzed representative clicked dismissively. "The containment systems are storm-resistant. The specimen will be secure." But Luna shook her head violently. "No, he knows something you don't. The storm is different this time, more dangerous. He can sense it." I placed a hand on Luna's shoulder, trying to guide her toward the exit where security personnel waited. "Luna, we need to go. The council has procedures for this." She shrugged off my hand, something she had never done before. "Papa, listen to me. This is important. The animals know something is wrong with this storm." The urgency in her voice gave me pause. I looked from my daughter to the predator, which was now pacing agitatedly, occasionally glancing up at the holographic storm display with unmistakable anxiety. "Ambassador, we must evacuate now," insisted a security officer. I made a split-second diplomatic decision. "Council members," I called out. "I request an emergency consultation. My daughter's connection with the Elysian predator suggests there may be danger beyond what your systems have detected." The evacuation paused as the council members exchanged rapid communications. Finally, the Milky representative approached. "Explain quickly, child," they said, colors shifting rapidly. Luna pointed to the holographic display. "The storm has something in it, something alive. The animals can sense it. They're all trying to go deep underground, not just to standard shelters." The Milosian counselor rippled with concern. "Our instruments detect only standard plasma discharge patterns, albeit unusually intense ones." "Because you're looking for energy, not life," Luna insisted. "Please, scan for biological signatures within the storm." After a moment's hesitation, the Milky representative gestured to a technical operator. "Comply with the human child's request. Recalibrate sensors for biological detection." The holographic display shifted, filters changing to highlight different aspects of the approaching storm. Suddenly, thousands of tiny points of light appeared within the plasma clouds. "Biological entities confirmed," reported the operator. Surprise evident. "Microorganisms with silicon-based structures, riding the plasma currents." "Impossible," clicked the jazzed representative. "No life form can survive in plasma storms." "Unless they evolve to use them," countered the Lurian counselor. "There are legends of such creatures in ancient records." "The Milkies," Luna whispered, loud enough for only me to hear. "The real ones." Before I could ask what she meant, the Milky representative's colors shifted to patterns I had never seen before, complex swirls that seemed almost to leap from their skin. "The whispers of the void," they said, their translator struggling with the concept. A semi-sentient collective organism thought to be extinct for millennia. If they have returned. "What danger do they present?" I asked urgently. "Unknown," replied the Milky. "But their historical appearances coincided with massive electromagnetic disruptions. Our shield technology may be insufficient." As if confirming this assessment, the lights in the council chamber flickered. The holographic display showed the storm accelerating, now less than 20 minutes from reaching the Harmony Spire. "Council members," announced the Milky representative, "upgrade evacuation protocols to level Omega. All personnel to subsurface bunkers immediately." As the evacuation resumed with greater urgency, Luna tugged at my sleeve. "Papa, we need to release the animals." "What? Luna, we need to get to safety." She shook her head fiercely. "The animals know where to go, better than any shelter, and they need our help to get there. Please, Papa. This is what this ability is for." I looked into my daughter's eyes and saw absolute conviction. In that moment, I made a choice to trust not just in Luna's ability, but in her understanding of what it meant. "Council members," I called out, my diplomatic voice cutting through the controlled chaos. "I propose an immediate joint action. The wildlife preservation incidents that brought us here demonstrated a protective response from Eden's fauna toward human children. We can use that connection now to help guide both humans and animals to safety. The council members paused in their evacuation. "Explain swiftly, Ambassador," demanded the Just representative. "The animals sense safe locations, deeper than our bunkers, with natural protection against electromagnetic disruption. My daughter can establish sufficient connection to follow their guidance, even through the suppression field that has been limiting her abilities." The accusation hung in the air, but there was no time for political maneuvering. "And the containment protocols?" asked the Lurian counselor. "Many of these creatures are predators. This ability isn't about control," I said firmly. "It's about mutual respect and cooperation. The animals won't attack if they aren't threatened, especially not when facing a common danger." The Milky representatives' colors shifted rapidly as they considered the proposal. Finally, they nodded. "Proceed, Ambassador. But be aware that if your assessment is incorrect, the consequences will fall on humanity's standing in the Confederacy." "I understand," I replied, then turned to Luna. "Are you ready?" She nodded, her small face set with determination. "Release him first," she said, pointing to the Elysian predator. "He knows the way." At a command from the Milky representative, the containment habitat's door slid open. The predator emerged cautiously, its slitted eyes fixing immediately on Luna. The chamber held its collective breath as Luna knelt, extending her hand not quite touching the creature. For a long moment, predator and child regarded each other in silence. Then, with a grace that belied its fearsome appearance, the predator dipped its head in what could only be interpreted as acknowledgement. It turned and padded toward a service entrance, pausing to look back at Luna. "He wants us to follow," she said simply. And so began one of the most remarkable evacuations in Confederacy history. Led by Luna and the Elysian predator, a procession of council members, diplomatic staff, and increasingly, animals from the biological archives, moved through the lower levels of the Harmony Spire. Word spread quickly, and preservation officers began releasing animals from other containment facilities. Rather than the chaos that might have been expected, the diverse creatures formed an orderly migration. Prey and predator alike focused on survival rather than their usual ecological roles. Through it all, Luna maintained a tenuous connection, not with any individual animal, but with the collective emotional current that flowed among them. It wasn't this ability as she had known it before. It was something new, adapted to work around the suppression field that still hindered her. "She's pioneering an entirely new approach," Dr. Okafor explained, as we descended through levels of the spire I hadn't known existed. "Instead of direct empathic projection, she's creating an emotional resonance that amplifies the animal's own communication methods." The Elysian predator led us to an ancient section of the spire's foundation, where the polished architecture gave way to natural caverns that predated the Confederacy's presence on Eden. As the first tremors of the storm's approach shook the structure above, we found ourselves in a vast underground chamber lined with a crystalline substance that glowed with soft blue light. "The historical records were accurate," said the Milky representative, their colors shifting to patterns of awe. "The deep haven exists." "What is this place?" I asked, watching as animals and diplomatic representatives alike settled into the space, instinctively arranging themselves in concentric circles. "A sanctuary created by the earliest inhabitants of Eden," explained the Milosian counselor. "The crystals absorb and disperse electromagnetic energy, protecting whatever shelters here." Luna had taken a position at the center of the chamber, the Elysian predator lying beside her like a guardian. Other animals, Earth species, and Eden natives alike arranged themselves around them, creating a living mandala of interspecies cooperation. "The animals," Luna said, her voice carrying in the acoustic perfection of the chamber. "They remember this place, even though they've never been here before. The memory is in their cells, passed down for generations. Above us, the plasma storm made landfall. Even through layers of rock and technology, we could feel its power, a vibration that resonated in bone and sinew. The crystal walls pulsed in response, absorbing energy that would have devastated any conventional shelter. And then, something extraordinary happened. As the storm reached its peak intensity, tiny points of light began to filter through the crystal ceiling. Not harmful plasma, but a distilled, purified energy that coalesced into floating orbs throughout the chamber. "The whispers," breathed the Milky representative. "They've found us." The orbs drifted through the chamber, pausing near each species group, as if in recognition. When they reached Luna and the Elysian predator at the center, they began to circle, gradually forming a spiral pattern that mirrored the galaxy itself. Luna's face transformed with wonder. "Papa," she whispered, "I can feel them. Not like animals, like music, like light. They're the real Milkies." The Milky representative moved forward, their skin flowing with patterns more complex than any I had seen before. "Yes, child," they said. "You perceive correctly. What you call the Milkies are not us, though we took our name from them in your language. They are the originators, the first sentient beings of our galaxy. Most believed them extinct, their consciousness dispersed in interstellar plasma. But they're not extinct," Luna said with certainty. "They've just been sleeping, waiting." One of the orbs detached from the spiral and drifted to hover before Luna. As we watched in amazement, she closed her eyes, her face a study in concentration. "Luna," I called, concern overriding diplomacy. "What's happening?" Her eyes opened, filled with a luminescence that mirrored the orbs. "This ability isn't just for animals, Papa. It's for understanding any form of life, even ones we never imagined. The whispers are trying to communicate with us, with all of us." The Just representative clicked its mandibles rapidly. "Impossible. Their consciousness structure is entirely alien to vertebrate neurology." "Yes," Luna agreed, surprising the Just into silence. "That's why you created the suppression field. You were afraid humans would connect with them, learn from them. You've been trying to communicate with them for centuries, haven't you?" The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to the Just counselor. "Your accusations are unfounded," it began, but the Melosian counselor interrupted with a ripple of indignation. "The neural suppression technology matches Just signature patterns," it stated. "This has been verified." The Milky representative's colors darkened. "Counselor, explain yourself." The Jezit's compound eyes gleamed in the crystal light. "The whispers hold knowledge that predates our civilizations, secrets of consciousness and energy that could upset the balance of power in the Confederacy. Humanities. This ability represents an unpredictable variable. We sought only to contain the situation until proper evaluation could be completed." "By sabotaging my daughter's demonstration?" I asked, diplomatic restraint finally breaking. "By engineering incidents to make this ability appear dangerous?" "Precautionary measures," the Just insisted, "until we could determine whether humans would use this connection responsibly." Luna, still surrounded by the orbiting lights, spoke with a clarity that silenced the growing argument. "The whispers don't belong to anyone. They're trying to warn us. The storms are getting stronger because the galaxy is changing. They want to help, to teach, but they need bridges between species." She gestured around the chamber, where humans and aliens and animals had arranged themselves in unconscious harmony. "This is what this ability is really for, not just connecting humans to animals, but helping all living things understand each other better." The orb before Luna pulsed brightly, then expanded into a cloud of luminescent particles that spread throughout the chamber, touching each being present. As the particles made contact, I felt a sensation unlike anything I had experienced, a momentary glimpse into a consciousness vast and ancient, yet fundamentally connected to all life. Gasps and exclamations in a dozen different biological modes filled the chamber as others experienced the same connection. When the light receded, the Milky representative stepped forward, their skin flowing with patterns of deep significance. "The human child speaks truth," they announced. "The Whispers have shared direct communication with all present. They seek symbiosis, not dominance. They offer knowledge in exchange for biological diversity and new perspectives." The Jez counselor's posture had changed. Mandibles now held in what I recognized as a gesture of contrition. "I have erred in judgment," it admitted. "The connection is not what we feared." Luna stood, swaying slightly with fatigue, but smiling. The Elysian predator rose with her, its powerful form now clearly protective rather than threatening. "The storm is passing," she said. "But the Whispers will return. They're part of Eden, part of the whole galaxy. They've always been here, watching and waiting for species that could understand them." The Milky representative turned to face the assembled council. "I move that all suppression technology be immediately deactivated, and that this ability be recognized as a valuable contribution to interspecies communication within the Confederacy." "Seconded," rippled the Melosian counselor. "The council is in agreement," declared the formal voice that had announced our arrival what seemed like a lifetime ago. As the storm above subsided, and preparations began for returning to the surface, Luna finally succumbed to exhaustion, leaning against me heavily. "You did it," I whispered, lifting her into my arms as I had when she was smaller. "You showed them exactly what this ability is meant to be." She smiled tiredly. "Not just me, Papa. All of us together. That's the point." The diplomatic repercussions of the events in the Deep Haven reverberated throughout the Confederacy. The formal council session that had been scheduled to evaluate this ability instead became a ceremony of recognition, with Luna and I receiving the rarely bestowed Harmony medallions, symbolic of contributions to interspecies peace. The Zhezd representative publicly acknowledged their faction's interference and pledged resources toward a joint research initiative studying the positive applications of this ability throughout Confederacy territories. Most significantly, a new conservation protocol was established for the Whispers, now formally recognized as the originator consciousness that had been fragmented throughout the galaxy for millennia. Eden was designated as their primary sanctuary, with this ability practitioners from Earth assigned as primary communication liaisons. As Luna and I prepared to depart Eden on the diplomatic vessel, now renamed Harmony Whisper, in commemoration of the events, we stood once more at the observation deck, watching the crystalline forests shimmer in the morning light. "Will we come back, Papa?" Luna asked, fully recovered from her ordeal and eager for new adventures. "Often," I promised. "You've been officially appointed as a junior liaison to the Whisper Conservation Initiative." "And the Milkies?" I smiled at her persistent use of the nickname. "The Confederacy species have officially adopted that term in English translations, thanks to you. Apparently, it captures something their formal designation missed: the nurturing aspect of their philosophy." Luna pressed her palm against the transparent aluminum, much as she had when we arrived. But this time, her eyes shone with confidence rather than uncertainty. "I can feel them all now, Papa. Not just the animals, but the Whispers too. It's like music inside my head, but made of feelings instead of notes." "The suppression field is completely gone," I confirmed. "Dr. Okafor says your neural pathways have not only recovered, but expanded. Adapting to work around the suppression actually strengthened your abilities." Luna nodded, unsurprised. "That's how life works, isn't it? Growing stronger when things are hard." I placed my hand beside hers on the window. "That's how good diplomacy works too." As the ship prepared for departure, Luna gazed out at the star-filled expanse that awaited us. The Milky Way galaxy spread before us like a roadmap of possibilities. Billions of stars, millions of worlds, countless forms of life waiting to be understood. We're just beginning, aren't we, Papa? Luna whispered. I nodded, feeling the weight of the Harmony medallion against my chest, and the even greater weight of responsibility that came with it. Humanity had been given a second chance to prove ourselves as members of the galactic community, not through dominance, but through connection. Yes, I replied, watching as Eden receded below us and the stars beckoned ahead. We're just beginning.